We have a special public hearing this evening. This is for the presentation of our annual operating budget and also to allow for public input on our annual operating budget. So at this time, we'll call that public hearing to order. Again, this is the public hearing on our annual operating budget. And Mr. McNeely, did you want to present anything as far as that was concerned?
Just a chance for the public if they have any comment at this time.
Okay. So prior to tonight's meeting, we did advertise for the public hearing. We also made our budget available online and at the front office for anyone to review. If any members of the public would like to offer any sort of, public comments on the annual budget, you don't have to fill out a yellow form for this. You just wave your hand and I'll recognize you, and we would love to hear from you. All right. It appears that there are no public comments regarding our 2024-2025 annual operating budget, and so with that, we will close that public hearing. I don't have a gavel tonight. All right, we'll call our meeting of the Tangipahoa Parish School Board to order this Tuesday, September the 3rd. Ms. Jenkins, if you would, please call the roll. Here.
Mr. Anthony. Here. Mr. Moore. Here. Mr. Piazza. Here. Ms. Dominguez.
All right, if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag is over here in the corner. If we have any veterans or active military, please offer the proper salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Anthony, we wanted to thank you for allowing us to take over the library tonight. We're glad to be here. Always great to be in Wolf Country. All right, first item on the agenda is to consider approval of our board minutes from August the 20th, 2024. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Motion is made by Mr. Piazza. Seconded by Mr. Westmoreland. Any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? I'm sorry. We'll call the question. Please vote your devices.
Voting is open.
Yes, sir. I don't mind doing that.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Jay or Jeff, is there any reason we can't just adopt the administration's recommendation on all of these at one time? Or does, with the public bid, does it need a? We'll just do them real quick. That's all right. All right, first item under board actions is to consider approval of the low bid for the Kentwood High Magnet School's main building roof removal and replacement project from Roofing Solutions, the low bid being in the amount of $339,700 with an alternate in the amount of $18,600. This is a Hurricane Ida project. Mr. Coxon?
Yes, sir. We received 4 bids. The administration is recommending the low bid to Roofing Solutions, $339,700.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the administration's? So motion. Yeah, motion is made by Mrs. Richards, seconded by Mr. Toller, which I was going to do it that way. Yeah. Is there any discussion from the board? Mr. Moore. You got the microphone?
Okay, no, I've reviewed all of the items under the board actions, and I have some concerns, right? Even though all of the items that are on there, I agree, these things need to be done. You know, I will be abstaining on all votes tonight because of the 11, first of all, the 11 assessments that have been done on schools throughout the parish, and I am concerned. I'm going to abstain because I'm concerned about all of the other repairs that need to be done that have not yet been addressed.
Okay. And the administration's recommendation also, on all of these, just so we're clear, is all subject to court approval, so I believe. So we will either have already sought court approval or we'll get court approval after this step. Any other discussion from the board? Let me get you the microphone.
These insurance or FEMA funds, or is any way to recoup any of this if it was hurricane damage?
This specific item is being funded through the Hurricane Ida Fund, the roof replacement.
All right, any other questions or discussion? There's no public input on this item, so we'll call the question, ask members to vote your devices. Again, the motion is to adopt the administration's recommendation approving the low bid subject to court approval.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Moore abstaining.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to consider approval of a low bid for an A-Meet Westside Middle Magnets HVAC project, the bid being awarded to the low bidder, Sharkey Mechanical Services, LLC, in the amount of $368,770. Again, subject to court approval. Mr. Coxon?
That's what I was going to point out. We received 4 bids, Sharkey's Mechanical being the lowest and the recommended by the administration. This is subject to court approval.
All right. Motion is made again by Mrs. Richards. Right?
Yes.
Seconded by Ms. Abrams. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Of course.
If I understand correctly, the prices that we're approving here are not simply for HVAC. There's other stuff that goes into this. Is that correct?
Mr. Valerita?
Yeah, that's correct. It depends upon the school. Sometimes there's, a lot of times there's electricity that has to be brought, much more electricity. And then in some conditions, we have to do some, touch the windows with some tinning or change those out. So it just depends upon school.
And Mr. Valerita, just again, to add more clarity to that, for each one of these projects, an architect has to be brought in to assess that particular project, design the project, and make those determinations. Is that right?
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
And so that's why it's not the same for each school, but it is being done by a professional that we can hold accountable.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, there's no public input. We'll call the question, ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Moore abstaining.
All right, next item on the agenda is to consider approval of a low bid for Laranja Middle School's gymnasium's HVAC project, awarded to the low bidder Sharkey Mechanical Services, LLC, in the amount of $432,586. Again, subject to court approval. Mr. Coxon.
We received 4 bids, Sharkey's Mechanical being the lowest bid at $432,586. Again, we're considering approval subject to court approval.
All right, is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation? Motion, yep, motion is made by Mr. Piazza, seconded by Ms. Abrams. Any, go Wolves. This would be a good time, I guess, Mr. Valaruta, I'll pull you in on this one. Can you tell us, or I guess confirm for us, that there are other schools that will be receiving similar projects coming up in our next board meeting? That all of these are in the works, is that right?
We did open 2 bids this morning.
We opened 2 bids this morning. There was a last-minute question of the architect from some potential bidders about Hammond High Magnet School, Jules Sumner High School, Roseland Montessori, and Spring Creek. So those will open on September 10th.
But the overall objective, this has been something that's been in the works for quite some time, as I understand. The overall objective is to have similar like projects at all of our campuses that do not have HVAC in their gymnasiums.
Absolutely. We
And-
want to put air
and-
conditioning in all of our main gyms that do not have air conditioners. It's time for them to have air conditioning.
And so we've been waiting on the ability to have the funding to do all of this for all of these different projects. And once that was made available, we started down that road.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So even though these are the only ones on tonight's agenda, we have other ones coming at in subsequent meetings.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion on this motion? All right. All right. No other discussion on this agenda item. There's been no public input requested. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Moore abstaining.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to consider approval of low bids, again, for gymnasium HVAC projects for Amite High School, Natalbany Elementary, Independence High, and Independence High Magnet. All of those being awarded to Sharkey Mechanical Services. And the total amount of $1,372,382 with an alternate in the amount of $113,000. Mr. Coxon, anything to add to that other than it will be subject to court approval?
Subject to court approval, again, we received 4 bids, Sharkey's being the low bid.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation? Motion is made by Mrs. Abrams, seconded by Mrs. Richards. Any discussion on the motion? There being no public input, we'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open.
Correction.
Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Moore abstaining.
Finally, item E, consider approval of the low bid for gymnasium air conditioning projects for Perrin Early Learning Center, Lucille Neeson Memorial, Champ Cooper, all being awarded to Sharkey Mechanical for the total amount of $1,086,163, subject to court approval. Mr. Coxon?
Again, we received 4 bids, this is subject to court approval, with Sharkey's being the low bid.
All right, is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation? Mr. Piazza makes the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Westmoreland. Any discussion? Hearing none, having received no public input on this agenda item, we'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open.
All right, next item on the agenda is for some projects at Kentwood High and Independence High School. Mr. McNeely?
Yes, this is a little unusual. The bid opening on this is on the 5th, and because it's ESSER funds, it needs to be finished by November 30th. So rather than hold over and wait until the next board meeting, we're asking for you to give the administration authorization to award the bid to the low bidder, not to exceed the $250,000 per lab that is set aside for ESSER funds. And then we can come back to you at the next meeting for you to ratify that with the actual bid. But we anticipate that those bids will be under $250,000.
And I believe we've already applied for court approval, and I received that maybe on the 29th? Yeah, approval.
So moved.
All right, motion to adopt the administration's recommendation made by Mr. Toller. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Richards. Any discussion from the board? All right, there's been no public input requested on this agenda item. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Moore abstaining.
All right, next item is to consider approval for a new control monitoring system for our parish-wide HVAC systems. And Mr. Valaruta is going to present that to us.
Yes, given the state of our current system on our Novar system, it's like 30 years past its life. It's time to replace it. We're just wanting to seek and go look for another open backnet system that we can employ throughout all of our schools and school buildings, so that we can have a modernized technology to monitor our HVACs and those equipments. And so that's what we're asking to do, is to go forth and look for that.
Secure network.
Yes.
Are y'all just going to do that through an RFQ, or how are we looking at doing it?
We're going to do it from through an RFQ. We're going to write a bid spec for it and then put it out for quote. I have a commissioning agent that is now actively writing a quote. I want to get with our IT department, with Mr. Diaz, to make sure what we're getting is compatible with our security systems, given our history.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation? Motion is made by Mr. Toller. Is there seconded by Mr. Piazza? Any discussion on Mr. Anthony? We need a microphone for Mr. Anthony.
I motioned it. Mr. Piazza seconded it.
Okay, is this the correct motion?
To adopt the administration's recommendation.
What we're giving approval for is to go out with an RFQ, so we're not approving any money necessarily. Just all right, real quick. Heading back to these air conditioners, because actually somebody just texted me and asked. So we just approved these funds. Does that mean work is set to begin immediately? Or
Yeah, those are good bids, so now it's the vetting process and getting those pre-construction items in so that we are able to start construction properly.
all right, one more too. So the second round, do you know what facilities, do you have a list of them in your hand, for example, that tell us what facilities were not on this list and when we could expect to have that back at a board meeting?
Do I understand every airport?
Oh, sorry. I know hands back.
All of our gyms, this will have, when we're through with even the second round that's coming to four, that's opening in September 10th, and all of our gyms will have air
There you go.
conditioners at that point.
So, Mr. Valaruta, so that means, so with the vote tonight, we are hiring the contractors, correct? We were so that's what tonight. So
Those winning bids, yes, sir.
by the winning bids is the practice of hiring the contractors who then can start the process of actually getting to work.
Yes, sir.
And then, as you just said, the schools that were not approved tonight, essentially we have the next round that's coming in on at our next board meeting. We should be ready to approve the
Yes,
bids
sir.
for those other schools.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was just going to clarify on the path forward. I know you mentioned it earlier, but every facility needs different things. But just the equipment alone, most of it is 20 weeks or 30 weeks to get the HVAC equipment delivered. So I think I spoke to someone with Sharky's last week. We were talking about it, and they were talking about coming into the schools, doing the electrical upgrades to get ready for the equipment while it was on order, so that when the equipment arrives, then they're able to hook it up as quick as possible to get it going. But some of these schools, I know like Spring Creek, for instance, there's extensive structural work to do as well to have places to put these things. So this won't be in the next month.
Correct.
This will be over. This will hopefully be by spring of next year. We'll have AC running in our gyms.
Mr. Anthony, you had another question?
No, I think that answers.
Just to be realistic.
Okay.
Real quick, I forgot to ask this. I know we're putting ACs in. Are these going to be heat and cool, or are these just going to be cool? I didn't ask that question before, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
I think we expect heat pumps in them.
All right. Okay, so I think we're ready then to call the question on the agenda item G, which is to to approve sending out a request for proposals on new monitoring systems for our parish-wide HVAC systems. The motion is to approve the administration's recommendation, and that was the administration's recommendation. All right, motion was made by Mr. Toller, seconded by Mr. Piazza. Any other discussion on the motion? There's been no public input requested on this agenda item, so we'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item on the agenda is to consider approval for the state stipend distribution plan of a one-time allocation in accordance with Act 4 of the 2024 regular legislative session. Mr. McNeely.
All right, so as you may know, the state did the 2,000 for certificated and 1,000 for support staff. I'm kind of oversimplifying it because the state actually went into great detail to select certain job description codes within our system of who gets 2,000, who gets 1,000. What we're proposing is that the distribution be for employees hired on September 30th. So if they're an active employee on that date, because we have to pick a moment that we say, here's who gets the stipends, and that would be paid with the October 14th payroll. In addition, the state did not include our pre-K teachers and aides in their MFP allocation for this. So we're asking board approval to include the pre-K teachers and aides at the 2,000 and 1,000 level, and it will be paid out of the grant funds that pay for those programs. So that's what we're asking tonight.
Is there a motion to adopt it? The motion is made by Mrs. Dominguez, seconded by Mr. Piazza. Any discussion on the motion or questions from the board? All right. Hearing none, there's been no request for public input on this agenda item. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item on our agenda is to approve the 2024-2025 annual operating budget. Mr. McNeely.
I believe the
We have a
budget.
resolution on this one, I think, right?
So the budget has been presented and advertised for the 60 days. We didn't have any public comment, and I believe I've answered the questions that the board members have submitted prior to the meeting. If anyone has anything additional, if you'll email those to me and I can go through those. So the administration's recommending approval of the budget tonight. The deadline for the state is September 15th, so we need to go ahead and approve it tonight.
Is there a specific resolution that we have to adopt? So the motion would be to adopt the budget resolution. I will read it. All right, at the September 3rd, 2024 Tangipahoa Parish School System Board meeting, the following motion was offered and seconded. A motion adopting, finalizing, and implementing the general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, and capital project fund budgets of the Tangipahoa Parish School Board for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025. Whereas Melissa Stilley, in her capacity as Chief Administrative Officer of the Tangipahoa Parish School Board, prepared, with the assistance of Jeff McNeely, Chief Financial Officer, the proposed general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, and capital project fund budgets for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, which was accompanied by a budget resolution. Whereas the proposed general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund budgets are shown in the annual operating budget document after the budget resolution shows the revenues itemized by source and the expenditures itemized by function as required by Louisiana Revised Statute 39:1305. And whereas the accompanying budget resolution has been submitted to this board for review and consideration, and whereas notice of a public hearing on the proposed general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, and capital project fund budgets, notice of the availability of the proposed budgets for review at such hearing, and a general summary of the proposed budgets have been timely published in the Daily Star, and whereas a public hearing on the proposed general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, and capital project fund budgets has now been reviewed and considered, now therefore be it resolved by the school board that the proposed general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, and capital projects fund of the budgets are hereby approved, adopted, finalized, subject to the following changes. Be it further resolved that the treasurer, secretary of the school board, Melissa Stilley, or her successor is hereby authorized and in her sole discretion to make such changes within the various budget classifications as she may deem necessary, provided that any reallocation of funds affecting in excess of 5% of the projected revenue collections must be approved in advance by an action of the school board at a meeting duly noticed and convened. And be it further resolved that the superintendent of the school board, Melissa Stilley, or her successor in her capacity as Chief Administrative Officer of the school board is hereby directed to advise the school board in writing when total revenue and collections and other sources plus projected revenues and other sources for the remainder of the year within a fund are failing to meet total budgeted revenues by 5% or more. 2, total expenditures or other uses plus projected expenditures and other uses for the remainder of the year within a fund are exceeding the total budgeted expenditures and other uses by 5% or more. Or 3, the actual beginning fund balance within a fund fails to meet the estimated beginning fund balance by 5% or more, and the fund balance is being used to fund current year expenditures. Be it further resolved that the Secretary-Treasurer of the School Board, Melissa Stilley, or her successors shall certify completion of all actions required by Louisiana Revised Statute 39:1306 by publishing a notice of the minutes of the meetings in the Daily Star. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Motion is made by Mr. Toller. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Anthony. All right, discussion. Mr. Piazza.
So I do have a few things that I wanted to kind of make a note in here. And for those who watch this or in the room, budget is a big part of what the board does because it's a big part of the power that we have as a board and to make sure we're getting things done into our schools of what we need. I have a big issue with some of the stuff in this budget. I found a lot of discrepancies in the budget when it comes to positions and payroll and all that good stuff. I've asked for some information, and I've been arguing this for over a year and a half now about our maintenance department, about how it looks, how much money we spend in it, how much is being done, and how much is not being done. When I looked in this, I asked on August 15th for some things about our maintenance on positions, salaries, how many people are licensed, how many people are unlicensed, and I didn't get an answer. So when I didn't get an answer, I start diving into the books. Now, this is a 300-something page document. I know there's not a lot of people out there that like to read. My grandma told me reading is power. And so I went into the document and started reading. And she also said keep it simple and always keep evidence. I kept every book that I have been given on this board, and I always ask for a paper copy. They don't line up. The numbers do not add up when it comes to positions. Now, me and Mr. McNeely had a conversation prior to this, and he kind of gave me an answer on why some of this is not lining up. But my argument is I'm looking at a budget from 2022 to 2023, and it shows here we had, if I'm counting foremans, you had 4, 5, 6, maybe 5 supervisors. We now have 8 or 9. We have 8 or 9 supervisors for 33 guys. While I have teachers that have 35 to 40 kids in one classroom, and they have 7. What do we need all these supervisors for? And before somebody says, oh, well, we got all these things going on, I want them to understand you're taking salary dollars away from the HVAC workers, the electricians, the plumbers, the ones who physically put their hands on the machine. You can't pay them and you can't give them a raise because we're paying supervisors. And it's not just maintenance. We've done this across the board in other departments. But yet we sit up here and we always argue that our ACs aren't working, that the buildings don't look like we want them to look. I remember a time when we had a guy who didn't even have a high school education running the maintenance department. He had 2 foremans, and our schools looked amazing. Now we have 9 supervisors. We're paying almost $300,000 more in salaries, and we're not getting stuff done. We've got more contractors than we ever had before. We as a board have to address the fact that we don't have workers, but yet we have all these people that sit and do other jobs with these fancy titles and these fancy salaries. Now look, I'm all for having chiefs that make a difference, but we have a lot of chiefs, not a lot of Indians. And a lot of things not getting done. Now, Mr. Terry, your team does the best they can, and they do a good job on where they're trying to do. So this is not a beat-up session on you or your team. But we have to be reasonable with our budget and how much money we have in a salary. We have a limited amount of dollars. We have a lot of ESSER funds that are going to roll over, and they're going to be non-existent in a few years. But yet we still got to maintain 8 supervisors. I'm asking the board president tonight, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but I am requesting that he really honestly think about doing an outside committee that does a full internal investigation on our maintenance department and the salary cap, the positions we have, and let's put forward a plan to really get a good maintenance crew together and a system in maintenance to get the schools back on track.
Any other discussion or questions from the board? Okay. We'll call the question again on the motion to adopt the budget resolution.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes with Mr. Piazza voting no.
Do we have the family here on the discipline review appeal? All right, we're going to pass it for now, and just we'll make sure that they're not somewhere else in the building. But I'll come back to it on our agenda before we close, just to make sure. All right. Next, we'll move on to superintendent's reports and recommendations. Ms. Stilley, we'll have a
Yes, item A, we have some policies to.
oh, yep. Thank you.
Yes, item A, we have some policies that have been recommended by Forethought for consideration through our policy committee. So we make a motion to refer these revisions to policies A, B, C, B, that's qualifications for school board members, B, 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 C, school board member continuing education, B, C, B, B, notification of school board meetings, GBA, contracts and compensation, GBRIB, sick leave, GBRIBA, sick leave bank, JDA, corporal punishment, JGC, student health services, JGDB, immunizations, JGCD, administration of medications, and JGCFA, behavioral health services for students, to the policy committee.
Is there a motion to refer? Motion is made by Mr. Piazza, seconded by Mr. Westmoreland. Any discussion on the motion? There's been no public input requested. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item is to consider approval to purchase a vehicle for our district's driver's education. This would be off of, I guess, a state contract, Ms. Tilley?
This is actually, I'm sorry, this is actually a used vehicle from Bill Hood Import that it's below 30,000, so we don't have to do bids or quotes. But Ms. Rhonda Collins identified this vehicle. It's a 2024 Altima with about 12,000 miles. We got the price down to $23,900. I spoke with Mr. Prey, who is part of Bill Hood, and they were willing to knock $2,500 off of that price to be a sponsor for our driver's ed program. So
Great. Do you
we
have
thank
any
them for that.
additional, Ms. Tilley? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendations? Motion is made by Mr. Toller, who's been advocating to get this program restarted for quite some time. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Anthony. Any discussion on the motion? There have been no public input requested. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, Ms. Tilley?
Yes, we're going to ask Dr. Fasell to come up and review the current revisions to and approve the 24-25 pupil progression.
Come-
Dr. Fasell?
Come down there. We need you to come down here so he can get you on. You got to be on camera, Miss Giselle. Sorry.
All right, Mr. Duncan. As you know, our pupil progression plan is our comprehensive placement, promotion, and retention plan for our district. And I brought you the only real change we had a few weeks before school started, which was our grading scale. Number 1, 2, and 3, about 10 years ago, we changed the 8th grade grading to match high school. We just didn't clean up the language. So number 1, 2, and 3 really cleans up the language of how their grades are figured for promotion. The fourth thing on there is what I already previously brought you about our 4.0 scale. You approve weighting the AP/IB dual enrollment courses. The thing I didn't mention to you last week, when I brought it to you, was that FAFSA is no longer a graduation requirement. We're still obligated to tell students about it, but it's not required for them to have a checkbox to graduate. And at the bottom, and we do want to say this as often as we can this year, this is the year third graders can be retained based on their literacy. So in the pupil progression plan, that is now reflective. In addition to that, we added that we do an individual academic plan for any student who's in danger of in third grade of being retained. And that's all the changes we have.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation? Motion is made by Mrs. Dominguez, seconded by Mr. Westmoreland. Any discussion? There's no public input on this agenda item. We'll call the question. Ask members to vote your devices.
Voting is open.
Yep.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, Ms. Tilly, any other general updates?
Yes, just real quick. Our attendance is continuing to improve. We had many of our schools that improved last week over the week before. So we know that the incentives that they're doing for our students is working. As I've said many times before, we can have the best curriculum and the best teachers, but if the students are not at school, they're not going to be successful. So that's good news. I shared an email last Friday with all of our employees and the board on that. The other thing is our interventions are continuing to climb each week. Interventions for reading and math are super important because not only do they help students who are below level in reading increase their reading abilities, but also our advanced and mastery students, it even helps them to continually improve their skills as well. It's also great for preparing students for ACT. We have interventions for kindergarten through 12th grade in reading and in math, and we're monitoring those interventions each day and each week because what we know is that if they're done, it will help our students and it will improve their reading potential. So we're going to continue to keep everyone updated on that on a weekly basis. And work with our schools in the implementation of those Tier 1 interventions. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're going to go ahead and take an agenda item out of order. Specifically, we're going to go ahead and do our general public input. And we have Mr. Melvin Husser here that would like to speak with us about the Laranja FFA arena sale. And Mr. Husser has reviewed all of the rules for participation. And Mr. Husser, I'm going to let you go over there too, just so he can get you on camera as well. Thank you, sir.
Members of the board, Mr. Duncan, President, members of the central office, Ms. Tilly, Superintendent, we are grateful for the opportunity for public input. However, I regret to have to focus on a conflict. That conflict being with a sale of 2.02 acres that you made to the Tangipahoa Parish Water District, December the 4th, 2023. This process began September of 2022. We are at almost 2 years. And my main focus here tonight is not to prop up the Agri-Science Department, not to discredit infrastructure improvement for the water district, but simply to point out that there is a large element that feels betrayed with this sale. We feel like it is a breach of the trust of the deed. I have a copy of that deed in my hand tonight. Upon learning of the sale, we made an effort to get this deed to all the entities involved in this sale. I was surprised to learn and find that no one had seen the deed. And clearly, we were disappointed. I have to say, as a result of my responding to interviews from the water district, to the parish council, to the Oronja High School administration, to a lot of people that were affected by the sale, the water district has had to sue the Genesee Lumber Company, the very people in the community and the very company that donated the property to the school system to be used for agricultural purposes. They have no alternative but to seek the heirs and the descendants of the deed so that they can have the clear title, which seems to be they have doubt. I'd like to read to you from that deed the reason that would explain the reason why I'm before you here tonight. Kind of like the M&M commercial. I need a minute, okay? It is expressly understood and agreed that the said property is to be used for agricultural school purposes only, and that it shall revert to the vendor in the event it is ever used for any other purpose. To focus on a comment made by a well-known NFL football player, coach, when he was attacked by the media after the game. What happened? Why? When? Where? What happened? His reply was, and you may know who he is, I'm not going to say it because I don't have to say it. The deed says it. Now, if you choose to declare this deed null and void, which I would pray that it didn't happen, I don't want to be around when we open the gate to turn the bulls out. I am sorry, and as a retired educator in this parish, and I apologize for not introducing myself to the members of the board who don't know who I am, and I haven't had the opportunity to meet some of you. But I retired as an agri-science teacher in Tangier Parish, 33 years. I have a vested interest in that arena property of 61 years. I would have hoped that somebody would have just made a phone call. Melvin, we fixing to sell 2 acres of your arena property. Would y'all like to come and tell us what you think about it? It never happened. I've been waiting 2 years. So that's why I'm here tonight. I'm formally, publicly asking for an opportunity for dialogue and conversation with the central office and the board. And that's why I'm here. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Husser. All right. Mr. Jinko, did we have, thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to go back to the consideration of the student appeal of our discipline review committee. board members, y'all should have received information on the appeal request. We have the option, even though the family's not here, if the board wants to go into executive session to discuss that appeal, we can do that. Or if the board would like to make a motion that we deny that appeal based on the information that has been presented to us, we can go ahead and do that as well. All right. All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Piazza to deny the appeal. The first second I heard was from Mr. Anthony. There's not going to be any public discussion on the motion, so and there is no public input. We'll call the question and ask members to vote your devices. All right, we'll move on to board member comments. We'll start over with our Laranja members. Ms. Abrams. Yep.
I do need to say congratulations to the Wolves for beating Ponchatoula in the Jamboree this past week. Coach Sammy, congratulations to the team. Yes, ouch. But Independence and Laranja play this coming week in Independent, so everybody be there and come support. I'll be sitting on the Independent side. Charles will be sitting on the Laranja side. So we're going to split ourselves since we have a split family. But I'll try to go in between the halftime. Independence did receive some new instruments this year, thanks to our board and our central office. They are the happiest campers, band members that you could ever imagine at Independence High School. So that was well worth it. Congratulations, Herman, and all the band members. The Pride of India is really building back up. We're not supposed to comment on public input, but in reference to what Mr. Husser was talking about earlier, if this does come to pass and this water tower gets built and everything is the money that we did receive from the sale of this land is going to be earmarked for Laranja Ag Department. So the money that we received, which I think was about $54,000, we're going to make sure that that money only gets spent on the Laranja Ag Department. So I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be after this lawsuit, but we would hope that, the Ag Department would be able to use this money to benefit them. So that's it.
Mr. Piazza.
Go Wolves. Go Wolves. Look, I wear red too, guys. I just want to thank all the coaches that put in that long work over the summer. We're about to go into the real grind of big games coming on Friday night. I don't know about y'all. I'm really excited about Friday nights. That's my favorite time of the year. I just hope that everybody here prays for our student athletes, both on and off the field for this year as we go forward. I want to give a shout out to the office staff and all the staff at Hammond Eastside Lower. They had some issues these past weeks with ACs and with stuff going on. I will tell y'all, I was boots on the ground in Hammond Eastside Lower the other day when they had a mass exodus. That staff did exactly what they were supposed to do. I mean, it was hectic, but they worked their butt off. They got every kid safely to their parent or their guardian and took care of business. So I want to give them their props. Along with the administration, I know Mr. McNeely was there. A few people from central office came and helped. It was amazing to see everybody cooperating together to try to help out. But that's what a lot of our parents need to understand is we have issues that arise. We do our very best we can, but the biggest thing is safety of students. And our staff does that every single day. They make sure they get a good education, and they make sure that they're safe while we're here. Same with Ponchatoula High School. Our sheriff's department did a wonderful job with that situation. Couldn't have been any happier with that. But guys, we're rocking and rolling. We've had some hiccups in the road. I know it's not exactly how we planned it, but we're doing well in Tangipahoa. We got learning going on. There's a lot of shining lights at the end of the tunnel, guys, and we're almost there. So I know a lot of people will be counting down to Thanksgiving break.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Yes, I'd like to thank the ladies for coming this afternoon to watch our board meeting. We usually don't get a whole lot of members, but thank y'all for coming and thank you for your hospitality this afternoon. I was glad to see that we've now approved the HVAC projects in all the gyms. The rest of them will come in a couple of weeks. I know everyone's going to be happy once that is completed. We've been in a lot of the gyms, and they are definitely hot during the summer and the fall, and the activities that children are doing in there. Also, it looks like when we do our policy, we might ought to pack our lunch because we'll have a long day that day when we do our policy. So, again, thank y'all for coming.
Mr. Mingus?
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for coming. Like he said, we don't usually have audience at all, so and thank you guys for coming too. I'm not really going to go in crazy on the budget like Mr. Piazza did, but although I did have a page of questions and I did ask the proper people over the departments to get those answers, and I feel like I've gotten most of the answers. I do feel like we do have a lot more people on the top level of either finance as well as maintenance. And we get asked a lot of questions about that, so it is kind of hard to answer. So that's why I ask my questions, because I need to be able to tell people why do we have these people. And I will send Mr. McNeely the list of the things that I asked about that I thought needed to be clarified in writing in the book. One of the things was some about our phase 2 issues that some of the things is not listed that we had already, I know as a board, voted on already. So there was quite a few things, though, so I will continue to ask those questions, and I appreciate the hard work because I mean, it's over a $300 million budget, so there's a lot to decipher and go back to look at. So I appreciate, y'all answering our questions tonight to the personnel and also Ms. Fazell about that, too, and Mr. Jinko. So also, I didn't go to the football game, but Robin informed us that LaRonja won, even though Ponchatoula, is really going to do really well this year. So looking forward to the football season, and hopefully we've got past all of the air conditioning issues, and we're going to move forward with that.
Ms. Richards?
Is it on? Okay. I want to thank Amite High School for hosting the Jamboree. That turned out really, really well. Now, the rules came up short, but they did their best, and we're proud of them. Also, I want to say to Dr. Purcell, I've been reading your newsletter and your staff. It is just amazing, and I just want to encourage the parents. If you're looking for what's going on, because everybody's, well, what's going on? We don't know anything that's going on at the school board office or what's going on from day to day and the upcoming events. Well, it's on Tangipahoa Parish School System newsletter. Everything is there. And then there's some links that's there that you can click on to go and find more helpful information that you're looking for. So, sometimes we just kind of miss it and we don't pay attention to it. But because I was just playing around with it, I was like, oh, this is a lot of great information. Thank you, Dr. Purcell, for that. And we just want to say thank you to LaRonja for allowing us to come and host our meeting tonight.
Mr. Moore?
So the school year has started out, and we've had a lot of chaos. I think that Melissa and her administration has handled those emergencies that have come up pretty well. I want to give a shout out to all of our teachers, because you guys are my favorites. You're the most important asset of the employee of the school system. You take care of our children. You are parents, whether you like it or not. You're parents for 8 hours a day. I have gotten quite a few calls about buses, school buses, transportation. And I just want to pass along one thing that I found out, and that is that if your bus is not running, if you've gotten a message that say you have to get your kids to school, and you cannot, you can call the transportation department, and they will do everything that they can to help you out.
All right. Rose, I'm gonna correct you. You said we don't often have an audience, and that's true. But when we do, they're normally angry. So it's nice to see smiling faces here. Also, Amber, thank you for hosting us. Amber's a classmate of mine, very proud graduate of Independence here. And I do want to ask for if y'all would consider praying for a young man. He goes to Ponchatoula Junior High. He's in a horrible four-wheeler accident, and basically he went back to surgery today after they had already sent him home. So he's got some issues with that. So like again, Ponchatoula Junior High School student, name is Boston Rice. If y'all would consider praying for him, I did ask for permission to mention his name today, and that's all I got. But thank y'all. Oh, and I do want to thank Pastor Scott Boney for coming in and praying for us today as well.
Mr. Toller.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, appreciate the fact that we're still doing the at-large, I guess, board meetings, going to the different schools. It's good for us to get out and see the community and see the schools that we govern. It gives us a chance, hopefully you'll have a chance tonight to walk around a little bit, look at the campus, ask any questions, and I'm sure you'll get your answers. But also, the AC investment, we went through that real fast, I know, because we've been talking about this for several years. That's if I do the math right, that's over $4 million of investments that we talked about tonight in our schools and our facilities. We need it. We've been talking about this for a long time. We have some more coming, so I know I'm going to get phone calls from Spring Creek, Chesbro, Sumner. I know you're going to get phone calls from Hammond. These other facilities are coming. It just takes a little bit longer to get some of the bids done. But I applaud Terry and your staff, because this is a lot of work. If you look at the specs on this, this is a lot of work, and to get 4 bids on most all of these, it says a lot that it was well put together, and we want that competitive edge. We hope people will continue to bid on our work, because we don't want to get to a sole provider or where we're always using one person. But and the other thing I wanted to finish up, and we don't really respond to here at the meeting to public input, but I will just say this to Mr. Husser. I'm a product of FFA. I'm a product of Sanford Hyde, Sid Kinchin, State Farmer, public speaking at state level. No one on this board, I don't think, is going to support ag science more than I will. And anything that we can do to help ag science in any of our schools, I will be more than glad to lead the charge. And I just want to make sure you know, and the Laronja community know, that when the board made the decision to sell that piece of property, we were looking at it as investment in the community that needed water. We never looked at that piece of property as part of the deed, obviously, because we didn't know about the deed. Had we known about it at the time, it would have caused a conversation that we probably would have had. But our intent was never to circumvent you or circumvent the Laronja community. Our intention was to invest in this community by helping to bring more water and better water to the community that needed it. So just wanted to clear that up and let everybody know where I stand on that, because I am a big supporter of the ag science, and still to this day. So anything we can do in the future, please let me know. You can call me personally, and I'll help you with it.
Yep, and Mr. Husser, I'll echo with the same things, and you and I talked a little bit before the meeting. Same thing that Mr. Toller and Ms. Abrams said. Right now the issue's in litigation, but regardless of what happens with that litigation, the commitment from the board and to the central office is that any funds that we have received from that sale will be dedicated to continue to be used by that agriculture department. Assuming we'll see how that litigation goes, but either way, we're going to make sure that those funds are used for the benefit of the ag department at Laronja High School. Couple of things to just go over. Again, some things that Mr. Toller talked about, but just to set the record straight on a few things. There's been some sort of suggestion that we have not been investing in trying to improve our overall facilities here within the Tangipahoa Parish School System. And just want to remind the general public that we just completed a major phase 1 renovation and facilities improvement project that improved facilities at a number of our campuses. We have in the works a significant investment in additional facility improvements in phase 2 projects. We have the AC repairs, our improvements that we are in the process of improvement. And then we also have an overall facilities assessment that has been underway and continues to be underway, where we are assessing the facility needs at every single campus, an extensive assessment of facility needs at every single campus within our school system. We then are prioritizing each of those facility needs, prioritizing safety and electrical concerns first, and have made a commitment that we're going to try to address those. Of course, though, with facilities, 34 different campuses, most of which are at least 40, some of 70 years old, there are going to be facility needs at our campuses that we just are not going to be able to address all at once. So we have to tackle them as best we can, and we are committed to doing that. But it is not as though we're not making a significant effort. We have, I believe, $50 million that we plan to spend, hopefully within the next few years, to make major investments. But again, a new campus alone, a new elementary campus, costs $16 million. So a $50 million investment is not going to, address every possible thing that anybody can identify. But we're going to do the best we can, again, trying to prioritize what we can. That being said, the air conditioning issues that we had, whether they were at Ponchatoula High School, Natalbany, Hammond Eastside Lower, and even at Hammond High, which continued to have issues today, none of those things are acceptable to anybody on this board. Those issues that are not acceptable to our central office staff, not acceptable to our maintenance department. They're not acceptable to any of us. It is just I can't even put it into words how frustrating it has been for all of us. The bottom line, though, is that when these types of things can happen, there is nothing that the principal alone can do to address it. There's nothing that the superintendent alone can do to address it. No member of this board can run over to any of these campuses and fix these ultra complicated air conditioning units. We don't even have, I don't believe, someone on our full-time maintenance staff that is a qualified technician to work on these complicated units. We rely on a company, a very sophisticated, high-level company, to do preventive maintenance on these units, to repair them when they break, or to replace them when it's time to replace them. And the bottom line is the company that was retained to provide us with those services let us down. They did not supply to us a service that was anywhere close to being acceptable or what this community deserves. And when we were able to address that, the superintendent did it. She terminated the contract of that company. She brought in a new company that has been making their best efforts to address all of these concerns. But again, until they are all concerned, the outcome will not be acceptable. The fact that Hammond High is still having problems with their air conditioning after we spent $2 million 2 years ago to completely replace that entire system, the fact that we're still having to fix it, and students and teachers today were having to suffer in 80 some odd degrees, maybe even 90-degree temperatures while they were trying to teach today, it's not acceptable. But we're going to do everything we can to fix it. And we're going to hold accountable the folks who let us down. So, all right, with that, the final item on our agenda is to consider our Joyce Marie Moore versus Tangipahoa Parish School Board litigation. Is there a motion to enter into executive session to consider the Joyce Marie Moore Tangipahoa Parish School Board matter? Motion is made by Mr. Westmoreland to enter executive session. Is there a second? seconded by Mrs. Dominguez. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, we'll enter executive session at this time.
Channel 17, proudly serving the Florida parishes.
The board having returned from executive session, there is no action to take on the matter of Joyce Marie Moore versus Tangier Bears School Board. There being no other business to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned.